Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I am your co-host, Maria Casillas, joined by my co-host, Cody Sizemore. Cody, how are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to talk to you today about something that I saw on Facebook. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind our listeners that speaking of Facebook, we'd love to see you in our Facebook group. It's called New Money Habits Financial Coaches. We have an amazing, growing group of people there. And everyone is super supportive in there. They feel comfortable asking questions and even debating things once in a while. It's not a cookie cutter response type of place, just so you're aware. So we do encourage you to jump on in there if you are not already. And also, we'd love for you to give us a rating or review on this. It really just helps us know what we're doing right, what you'd like to see us improve upon, and again, helping other people to see what we're doing here. So, Cody, I want to talk to you a little bit about one of your posts. You and I are friends on Facebook. I get to see some of what you do. I admittedly am not on there all the time, so Facebook doesn't show me all the things, but Facebook showed me this one, and I think it's because it got such wonderful engagement. It definitely piqued my interest. I love the picture that was attached to it. I'm not sure if you know which one I'm talking about, but it's this one that starts with something like, there was a girl, and there was a picture of you holding I think it was a flower pot. Does that sound familiar to you? Okay. So I wanted to talk to you about that because it does seem to have a pretty decent amount of engagement given the fact that you post about your business a lot. And sometimes people just ignore what's going on because it's background noise. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what was that post? What do you think? What do you attribute all of that extra interaction to?
Yeah. Well, what I'll say first and foremost is that I made the post because I had my meeting with this girl earlier that week, and
it's a client.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think our listeners know what post I'm talking about. So before you jump into some of the details, would you mind sharing just a little bit about what the post was?
Yeah. Basically, what it was it was me sharing a client's journey. Essentially, like her story and in her experience and what she went through while she was in coaching. Now, of course, I didn't tag her or anything like that. It was still confidential. But it was her journey throughout coaching. And, I was sitting at my computer and I was like, all right, I'm going to make a post here, but what kind of post do I want to go for? And I thought back to my meeting with her a few days prior. And I was like, her entire journey has been something that has really changed her in a lot of ways. And it's really inspiring. And I thought, what? I think I'm just going to share a client's success, but really paint a good picture as to what this looks like for people. Because I know for a fact that there's a lot of people who are potential clients out there that they may know the term financial coach, but they don't really know what it means or what they do or what it looks like. And maybe they've been curious about it, but they're like, but what exactly is it? And how does it help me? And all this kind of stuff. So I was like, I want to answer all of those questions through just telling this girl's story. And I think that, the reason that this post did so well is because it was in a story kind of format.
Okay.
And, for those who don't know, who don't follow me on Facebook or anything like that, this post did really well. It was one of my better ones in a long time. And probably it may be the best client success post that I've made probably ever. It did triple digits in likes on Facebook. It had several comments and a good handful of shares as well.
I'll say that's actually what jumped out at me, to be fully honest, was the number of shares.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's technically a single digit so far. But that, to me, that doesn't matter, because I tell you what, people do not take the time to share something unless it's so stupid it's funny and it's just like an attention thing, right? Or it's something that's totally relatable to them. And I just think that the fact that you had this number of shares really speaks volumes, because there was no value whatsoever for the people who shared it to share it, other than they wanted their friends and family to be able to see and read this particular story. Yeah. So to me, that is absolutely huge. So kudos to you for writing in such a way where people are like, oh, I actually want other people to see this and hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, it resonates with people because it's a relatable story and it's an inspiring story. And, not only did it get a lot of likes or a lot of shares, but I had actually a lot of people message me directly. Mm-hmm. People who didn't even like the post. Mm-hmm. They messaged me and they said, hey, like, I saw this post and here's what I'm dealing with. And I want to correct this. I want to make progress with this. So, it was a post that resulted in several phone calls, which is
fantastic.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So whenever you have that kind of power in just one post, something you put out for free, you spend 5 or 10 minutes typing it up and then it results in phone calls, like that is huge,
Absolutely.
And I think that, it's a really good topic to talk about because that's why we're here, right? We're here to get people on calls so that we can improve their lives and make an impact, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll kind of go into, what the post is and my thinking behind it and how I worded it and the intention behind all of that. I think that what might be best is just for me to read it really quickly and then kind of break it down from there. Is that okay?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'll go ahead and read it. But like Maria said, it's complemented with the photo of me, and I'm holding like a small flower pot, and in the flower pot there's a flower. And there's also some like $100 bills in the flower pot too, kind of symbolizing like, growing your money, a new beginning, like that kind of stuff. And that it really complements the story. So I think that is like a reason as to why it did so well. But, the actual text in the post says this. So it opens up, with a one line, and then it goes into the story. So the opening line says, so there's this girl. She was working at FedEx and driving for DoorDash just to make ends meet, living in an apartment on her own that had undesirable living conditions and buried in medical bills, car debt, and several other types of debt. Paycheck to paycheck, no savings, hustling just to get by. She came to me and told me about her situation and how she feels extremely called by God to step into ministry to serve her community. But she was questioning if that was even possible because of how much of a mess her finances were, and she could barely get by. It was truly devastating to her to think about that. She also had some deep emotional wounds from her upbringing with her parents being divorced when she was young, and that caused her to believe that she wasn't enough and that she never could be all the things that she could be. It was keeping her stuck and paralyzed, never being able to move forward, even though her soul knew that she needed to. We hopped into coaching, and then something amazing happened. She got her first $1,000 in the bank. She paid off her car repair bill. She paid off her phone. She paid off her medical bills. She got a new laptop. She went on three vacations, all paid in cash. And now she's debt-free and has close to $5,000 in the bank. Not only that, but she's also confident and believes in herself again. She broke up with her boyfriend who was draining her. And now she now not only has one opportunity in ministry, but two that will allow her to step into her true calling and be able to make an impact on the people's lives that she's always wanted. This is the power of coaching. it's not just about money. It's about your life and allowing you to become that best version of yourself and step into what you were put on this earth to do. I'm so proud of this girl, and I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do, and I can't wait to create this kind of impact with more people.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful.
Yeah. So before I unpack a few things that I thought, contributed to the response that this post got, I'm curious if there's anything that stood out to you with the post.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing is that you bookended it. So you started and ended with the non-money stuff. I mean, it was all about, what was her biggest pain point, and her biggest pain point was definitely more of an emotional one, a values-based one, not one that had anything to do with a negative number in the bank account. Mm-hmm. And then you put some of the measurable results in the middle. So here's how much she has in her bank account now. Here's what she paid off, yada, yada. But then you ended it with, yeah, this is really one of the things that allows her to become who she is. And I think that is some of the things that are missing so much with so many other coaches in this arena, especially in the arena of money. And the reason I say that is because there is this very measurable component when it comes to finances, that it becomes very easy for us to become so tunnel vision focused on that people they don't come to us for that. Even if they say that's what they're coming to us for, it's not really what it's about. What they're coming to us for is because if their money is telling the story, it's telling the wrong story about their core values, about what's actually important to them, about who they know they are, and their money's not telling that story. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that you did here, was help to not just address that, but actually position it in a way where people who are reading this understand that that's the real issue here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about coaching, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you hear the term financial coach and you think, oh, okay, it's about money. Yeah, it is, but it's about so much more than that. It's about the person behind the money. Mm-hmm. Way more than it is about their actual money. Way more.
Absolutely.
Right? So, the way of kind of sandwiching that, having like that type of talk being the two buns, right? Mm-hmm. Nice buns. And then in the middle,
there's this girl with nice buns.
Right. She had some nice buns. And then in the middle is the meat, right? which is the financial, right?
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I'm going to expand on that a little bit more, because I think that what you had just said is definitely something to keep in mind, that, there's a lot of the emotional, the life stuff that's mm-hmm. in here. But I also think that there's two other things that you didn't mention that are also key contributors to this as well. And I'll start with the meat in the middle. Mm-hmm. I went through and I listed, 4 or 5 things that she was able to do, right? And those were the measurable things, like having $1,000 in the bank, paying off her car bill, paying off her phone, paying off her medical, getting a new laptop, going on vacations. Now she's debt free and she has $5,000 in the bank, right? Like, that's the measurable stuff. Mm-hmm. And I could have stopped there, but then I said, not only that, she also is confident and believes in herself. Mm-hmm. She broke up with a boyfriend that was draining her, and now she has these opportunities because of all this stuff. And there is no science behind why she got these opportunities, but I personally am a very big believer in the law of attraction and stuff like that. And I know for a fact that she probably wouldn't have gotten these opportunities if she didn't take hold of her life and be a good steward with her money on the front end, especially with it being something that's ministry related. The old saying is well, God won't give you more until you you're good with the little, right? And that's exactly what she did. You know, she was a good steward. She did things properly. She took care of herself. She set herself up with a good foundation, set herself up for success so that when that opportunity comes, that she can step into it and be very good with it and not be stressing about money and you know, having that be the main focus of why she's doing it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's good to not just have like just the measurables, but then to say not only that, and then expand on what those measurables gave her as well.
I think it was also very smart to literally write, that's what coaching is about. Let me see. I'll pull it up. You said this is the power of coaching. It's not just about your money. So you took what was implied in the bulk of that statement and you just wrote it out for the person who is maybe skimming your longer post, or it's just one of those is like, just get to the point, Cody, you know, and that they go all the way, they scroll down. You're literally saying this is the power of coaching. Now, if they're like, wait a minute, it's not just about money. What do you mean? I saw all the little doodads in the middle. Like that's what he was listing. It might pique their interest to then go back and go, what is it about then? What did he just say? So I think that was a really smart tactic, whether or not you knew that that's what you were doing. I'm sure that you did. But I just think that was really, really good.
Yep. But I'll tell you what my smartest tactic is in this post.
Okay.
We haven't talked about it. It's the only thing we haven't talked about, but I think it's probably the thing that caused this post to really get the traction that it did. It's the opening line.
I agree.
So there's this girl, ... And the reason being, there's a few reasons. One, I'm married. I have kids. Anyone who follows me knows that because I post about them relatively frequently. So the fact that I'm saying, so there's this girl, automatically like shoots alarms in people's heads, like, what's going on with Cody and his family? Right? Like, is there another girl? Like, is this like some sort of like scandal? You know what I mean?
So, even you know, it's
my wife, when I made that post, like I came out into the living room like an hour later, and she mentioned it, and she goes, I saw your post, and I was like kind of thrown off by it because I was like, what the heck? Like, who's this girl? You know?
See, and I knew you so well. I know your innocence. I literally saw that. I'm like, oh, he's going to tell us the story about his wife. Like, that's what I thought was coming. Yep. And so I was clearly wrong. Actually, you know what? To be fully transparent with you, I kept reading because I thought maybe that was like the thing that brought you guys together. Like, okay. I did think, I thought you were telling the story of how you and Shannon met and, you know, got together. And so I'm reading, I'm like, oh, she was working at FedEx, driving for DoorDash. Like, you can see where all this is going. And then as I got a little bit into the weeds, I'm like, but that's not Shannon that he's talking about anymore, you know. And then I was able to see where all that came from. So I was one of the skimmers, and I didn't read word for word. Once I realized it wasn't about her, I did skip towards the end, and then I saw that line, and then I wanted to go back and see. So, so I agree with you that I think it was a great attention grabber. It's not the meat of what's going on, but it's the thing that it was the scroll stopper.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's the thumb stopper. Yep. And the other side of it too is how many times in your life have you heard the line, so there's this girl? I mean,
well, me,
how many
not
movies
as often.
Have you watched? How many books
I haven't heard it as often as you might have heard it.
but you know, it's a line that's very familiar to people. And usually when you hear that line, it's met with a good story, right? Yep. So I knew that, and I actually had my opening line at first was something along the lines of like, let me tell you this story. And then I stopped and I wrote the whole post out, and I looked at that first line because I know that the first line is very, very important. And I was like, that's not going to make people interested. And I was like, what would? And I was like, well, I'm telling a story about a girl. So I'll just put, so there's this girl. And I really think that, that first line is very, very critical. So for you guys listening to this, I want you to understand that when you make a post like this, to where you're telling a story and you're sharing a client's success, or maybe it's even your own story, to write it out and then look at it and then go back to that first line and be like, what would be the thing that really grabs people's attention? Because if you write out this, long post or intentional post, and that first line doesn't grab people's attention, then it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah, not many people.
It's like, oh, I did all this for nothing because no one actually stopped and read it.
Yeah.
That first line is very, very, very important.
Yeah, and you did just touch on this, but it was in such a subtle way. I want to make sure that I make it a lot more obvious. I'm actually taking a writing course right now because I homeschool my daughter, and so we're learning how to teach, young kids how to write. And one of the tricks in there is to make sure that you write everything out. It's one of the ways to prevent writer's block, right? So many people are like, oh, write about this. And then you're looking at a blank blank page and you're like, I don't even know what to write about. But that's because they're stuck on that first sentence or the title or whatever it is. Since you've put such emphasis on the importance of that first sentence, I know people are going to get stuck and go, oh, but I really need a killer first sentence and I don't even know where to go. So again, you alluded to this, but I just want to make it very obvious. Go ahead and write the whole post. Figure it out, write your stuff first, and then that first sentence will likely either jump out at you or it'll make sense, or, it'll just be, you're already in the creative mode at that point. And so you'll be able to more likely pull that out of there. So order of operations, write first, then title it.
Yep, exactly. So all in all, I think that Maria brought this up because she noticed that it was a powerful post, and obviously it brought results to my practice. And I just want to reiterate that there's a ton of different types of posts that you can make to market your business and to, tell people what you do and all that kind of stuff. But every now and then, telling a story and in a really good story is extremely powerful. I wouldn't do it every day or anything like that. Do it every once in a while, but when you do it, put your time into it. Really dig deep, hit those emotional key points, and then go back through everything, and then make sure you find that first hook that really grabs someone's attention so that they can read it. Because if you were to do that, you will turn heads, you will inspire people, and you'll motivate people to reach out to you for your services.
You bet.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to bring that up and just kind of share it with our audience. So if you're not following Cody, I encourage you to go do that so you can see this post. Is it public? I guess even if they're not following you, they could just go check it out.
Yep, all my posts are public.
Yeah. And I think the one other thing that I'll say before we wrap up here is that you mentioned having the picture was a really important piece of it. I do think that is true, that having, it's not just a story, but there was kind of a cool picture that went along with it. And I have said for many, many months that it's really neat to look at your portfolio of photos. I just love the creativity that is exuded in all of those. So for those of us who don't have those photos, what do you suggest as an attention grabber visually for a post like that?
Yeah. It could be something as simple as finding something on Canva or something like that, but I have chosen to stay away from that route because it's better to have something than nothing, right?
Yeah.
I would agree there, but people can tell when something is a stock photo and not, right?
Sure.
And, stock photos just don't resonate as much as, a picture of you and being creative and stuff like that. So, if you have resources to where maybe one of your friends is a photographer, hit them up and just do a session, for an hour and a half or something, get some props, and just have fun with it. You know, like some of my photos are very professional. Some of them are goofy. Some of them are artistic. It's just, you know, I hit up my buddy and said, hey, like, what do you have laying around? And, you know, we make it work.
So all the ideas didn't come from your head?
Not all of them. No.
Okay.
No. Like a decent
It's
amount.
important for people to hear that, I think. Because,
So
right?
For example, my best friend's a photographer, and, you know, thankfully he helps me out. You know, he does my photos for free, and I help him out by booking his wedding gigs. You know, like he doesn't like the booking process, so I just take care of it for him. And it's like an even trade kind of thing.
Okay.
But even if you have to pay a photographer a couple $100, it's going to be worth it, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, with him, we go into our photo sessions with literally nothing in mind. I just bring a couple changes of clothes, and then we go into his garage where he has his studio set up, and he has like all these random things just laying around. And I'm like, oh, we could use that. And I could like kind of like, you know, spin it off with like this kind of like pun or whatever it might be. So for example, I haven't posted this one yet, but you'll see it. I was in his garage and he had like this rope just laying on the ground. And he also has like a briefcase full of fake money. And, you know, that's really helpful for me. Is the fake money. So I said, dude, you should like tie me up with this rope and just like stuff money in the rope so that like, you know, like you're binded by your debt or like whatever it is kind of thing. And we did that. And, you know, I did some like shots where I was like struggling to get out of it and I was screaming and stuff like that. And they turned out really, really cool.
Very
so
cool.
I'm kind of banking those, but it could literally be something is like super silly. Like he has a hard hat and I just put the hard hat on. It doesn't have to be anything like super well thought out. You just find something and then you just take a picture with it and then you just say, okay, cool. How am I going to spin this? You know?
Yeah. It almost sounds like you're better off not having it well thought out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because you're allowing your creativity to flow at that moment. And then, you know, you have stuff, right? You have like this library of photos that you can then play with in the moment. And, you know, if it relates to something that you're reading, you can bring that in, or if it relates to a story that your client has, you can integrate it at that time. And I think it's really cool. I appreciate you sharing all of that because I think so many times things like that stop people because they're like, oh, well, I'm a great writer, but I'm not great behind the camera, you know, or I'm not great in front of the camera and I don't want all those pictures. Like, we don't want any of that to stop you. You know, if you're listening to this today, you don't need to be Cody. Let Cody be Cody. You be you. But we want to make sure that, you know, there are elements that are working. So let's try to play into those elements and don't be afraid to go and be creative. Don't be afraid to try something silly. You just never know how cool it's going to turn out for you. So
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Cody, for always letting me get off the rail a little bit. I appreciate you.
My
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today, you guys. We really appreciate you, every single one of you who tunes in on a regular basis. And if this is your first time, we look forward to seeing you next week again. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.